Okay, this is going to be a fun one because after a month of collecting data and information, studying the logs, playing with the community, and breaking 2K rating in Mythic Plus personally, we finally have enough information to come up with the biggest winners and the losers so far in the War Within Season 1. Just remember, of course, every class spec is technically viable and playable in all levels of the game. We just wanted to come out to update you all with some information on the better performing specs in Mythic Plus as well as Raid combined. This is a collective data and testing as well as performance of both of these modes together. Let's start off with the winners on the DPS with Enhancement. Listen, Enhancement Shaman has been so strong scaling through Season 1 so far. As we correctly predicted, when you start acquiring that 4-set bonus, you start summoning additional Ghost Wolves, your damage just starts getting crazy. Combine that with the fact that they scale very well with haste, so they're very gear dependent, and they have a very wide damage toolkit that is strong in both single target and Mythic Plus. Listen, this class is doing fantastic. Enhancement Shaman in the past had issues with some survivability, but they got some brand new talents, some stuff reworked, as well as, Stone Bulwark Totem, and generally, listen, they can hold their own with some of the other melee classes in the game. They bring utility with all their totems, constant wind shears, capacitor totem for stun, they have off healing, they have some of the best utility out there, and honestly, this is what really pushes them for me personally past a lot of the other classes. Across the board right now, Enhancement is doing fantastic, and with 11.0.5 fine-tuning a lot of their talents as well as their totemic hero talent tree, I mean, dude, the stock is so bright for Enhancement right now. The future is looking fantastic, easily making them a winner so far in Season 1. Moving on next, we have the Frost Death Knight, and for listen, a long time Death Knight fans have been begging for Obliterate builds to be a thing again, and because of some very generous tunings toward the class from Blizzard, as well as a hero talent tree being so damn good with Deathbringer and the whole Exterminate toolkit, good lord, the Frost Death Knight's AoE damage is almost compared to some of the other classes in the game, man. Whenever I join a Mythic Plus or run my own personal raid team, I always get excited when we have our Frost Death Knight because they bring so much utility as well. They have Abomination Limb to group all the mobs together, like shooting fish in a barrel. They have Death Grip to grip in those, those caster mobs, Blinding Sleet to incapacitate them, Frostworm's Fury to stun them all. I mean, listen, I love Frost Death Knight right now because of there being so much AoE in most of the fights in Neurobar Palace as well. They just dominate everything. They crush the meters heading into the higher end of heroic and mythic rating. And we knew in the beta how great Frost Death Knight was overall, and it seems that they lived up to the hype because this class is dominating in all forms of content so far in Season 1. Now, taking home personally what I think is the best overall DPS spec in the game, without a doubt, it has to go to Arcane Mage. Arcane Mage heading into the season was the strongest spec in the game, in my opinion, and one of my favorite aspects being that whether they're dealing their AoE or single target rotation, the rotation actually stays pretty much exactly the same. The only thing I don't particularly love about Arcane, though, is the RNG factor that comes with shooting out Arcane Orbs, but man, is this class a firework to play, man. It is so much fun. You got non-stop Arcane barrages shooting out, Arcane Orbs, Aether Attunement procs to make your Arcane missiles completely AoE and just shoot your AoE up to the moon. Boy, is this spec fun as hell to play and easier than it's ever been. Not only that, you bring some great utility with Arcane Intellect, you have excellent survivability with Ice Block, you have your Absorb Shields, Alter Time, Mass Barrier. I mean, listen, at this current moment in time, Arcane covers pretty much all the bases in the game you'd want in a spec, causing them to have my vote for the best overall DPS class in the game, and they are for sure winning so far in Season 1. Our next big winner, of course, we got to talk about the dominating Fury Warrior. In terms of a raw DPS perspective, they're amongst one of the highest in the game, while also, though, having a very laid back and not too complex rotation. You keep your Enrage buff up with Rampage. When you need to do some more AoE damage, you pop your Whirlwind before continuing your rotation. You save your big AoE cooldowns like Odin's Fury or Bladestorm from when a lot of adds get spawned and your Death Knights grip them all in. And listen, if you do that, I promise you'll end up being one of the top on the leaderboards with damage. It is very straightforward. For some of their other party members, they bring their Battle Shout for more attack power. They bring Rallying Cry for some defensive and dangerous situations during raiding environment. But listen, generally, you gotta know, Warrior's utility is very, very low. Fury Warriors are simply playing their own game. They're playing for themselves. They're a little bit selfish, but Fury Warrior does its own personal job well, and that job is simply hack and slash enemies to death. The fact that Fury Warrior is fulfilling its role in a very good way right now in dealing massive damage is a good sign, making it a clear winner so far this expansion. Another clear-cut winner so far this expansion for Mythic Plus and Raid surprisingly goes out to the Elemental Shaman. Listen, historically, Elemental Shaman has been pretty damn bad the past few expansions, but with a rework to their class talent tree, as well as 2 hero talent trees that fill different niches, I'm going to be honest, Elemental Shaman is going to work on the damage charts right now. Stormbringer is generally seen as, better for AoE damage, and you're kind of like that Emperor Palpatine vibe. And then Farseer is just miles ahead in terms of single target right now. Some people like the fact that you have to switch up hero talent trees for, different forms of content. Other people don't really like it, so it really comes down to personal preference. Not only that, though, Elemental Shaman's future looks very bright. Once again, with the last few weeks, them showing us details on some of the changes in 11.0.5 that are coming from them, the reworks coming to their talent tree, things just look really good for this class heading into the future. They have fantastic quality of life improvements coming, ditching some of the talents that don't feel too good, brand new animation updates for Ascendance and key abilities like Lava Burst. If you have your stock in LE right now, they're definitely a clear-cut winner, and you're looking bright. Moving on to healers, easily one of the biggest winners. You gotta talk about Preservation Evoker, man. You have one of the strongest raid cooldowns in the game with Rewind, literally turning back time on damage all of your allies previously took. Spirit Bloom and Dream Breath got much stronger with their hero talents, and with the lack of augmentation evokers being played right now, it kind of pushes Preservation's value through the roof comparative, to all of its other specs at the current moment in time. You have absolutely fantastic build diversity with both Flame Shaper and Croto Warden, filling their respective niches, and now that they're acquiring more gear and obtaining their tier set bonuses, you're really seeing Preservation's strength come out more than ever. They're the best raid healer overall by far right now, and continuously proving that they're great for Mythic Plus as well, making them a very, very big winner so far in Season 1. Now, we're not going to talk about healing without talking about Restoration Shaman, because damn, this class is by far one of the best healers you could pick up for Mythic Plus in Season 1 so far. They have tons of utility like Bloodlust, Dispels for poison and curses, Sky Fury, bonus health for your allies with some of their passives like Downpour, and of course, their crowd control. They have Capacitor Totem to AoE stun everything, a low cooldown kick with Wind Shear, but that isn't even the best part of it. When it comes to their healing, however, this is where they really shine. They got the new Totemic Hero Talent Tree, which greatly enhances all your healing output through your totems, really diving into that Resto Shaman theme, and I love the amount of AoE this class is putting out when it comes to healing with their Healing Rain. Sprouting Spirits is coming back, Ascendance, Chain Heal, Healing Stream Totem, all the other options, man. I'm loving the Restoration Shaman so far, and because of how well they're doing combined with their crazy utility, man, makes them a clear-cut winner so far this expansion. But now moving on to the tanks, when it comes to Mythic Plus and rating, our first clear-cut winner, surprisingly, is the Guardian Druid. Listen, I know, Protection Warriors are doing great too, but Guardian Druid is such a safe pick across the board in all content right now. Because of how badly every other spec for Druid is performing, Guardian stock is forcibly continuing to rise week in and week out, easily having the most straightforward rotation and defensive uses more than any other tank. Guardian Druid is very easy to play, and the skill curve is very low. Not only that, you have your Battle Res, you have Innervate for your healers, Stampeding Roar for some mobility, Incapacitating Roar for interrupts. I mean, listen, overall, I love Guardian Druid. They're just that safe pick that you can have. There's something comforting and warm about the simplicity of this class, and because of their DPS rotation being very simple, it means you can focus on the fundamentals like using defensives at the right time, keeping mobs clumped up for your group. I love how consistent Guardian is right now. Gotta be a winner so far this expansion. Alright, now I hate to bring this up again, but I gotta talk about the Vengeance Demon Hunter being another winner. And the only reason I still bring them up is personally, I think Vengeance Demon Hunter is the best Mythic Plus tank you can have in the game if your tank is very good. I was in a +7 the other day of Mr. Tyrannus Scythe, and everybody in the group died except for the tank on the last boss. And my Vengeance Demon Hunter tank literally soloed the boss from like 28% health down to 0 all on his own. I couldn't believe how ridiculous it was, and I know there are classes out there like Blood DK that can do similar, but I think the ceiling for Vengeance is just so much higher than some of the other tanks out there. You have ridiculous damage for a tank. You have the #1 damage for a tank with them, incredible mobility, a 3% damage increase for your casters, and man, is the Fell-Scarred Hero Talent Tree right now putting out crazy numbers with Demon Surge. Vengeance Demon Hunters may not be too easy to play, but if you know what you're doing, they have my vote for being the best tank for Mythic Plus, and amongst some of the best for rating, making them a clear-cut winner for me. All right, now shifting focus, heading toward the quote losers. It's not that we think these classes are horrible. We just simply think for the average player, it might be a little bit more difficult to pick up and excel with these classes compared to the other ones, simply because of tuning, design, difficulty, and gear dependency. Remember, this is based off Raid and Mythic Plus combined, and to take this with a grain of salt if I name your class spec here. Starting off first, sadly, we gotta mention the Demonology Warlock. Now listen, I'm gonna be honest, it really pains me to bring this class up because I love the design of this spec more than any other Warlock spec by far. But damn, is it complicated to pull off right. With this spec, there are so many scenarios where you can mess up your rotation due to you having to dodge mechanics, focus on survivability, misclicking, and just, simply making a human error in your rotation. There are just so many ways you can mess things up with them, and there's very little room for error with this spec if you don't do things properly. It requires a lot of micromanagement with all your minions and a lot of preparation to deal your damage at the highest potential it could possibly be. I think in the hands of a really good player, Demonology is just as good as any other Warlock spec. I just think for most players, the juice just isn't worth the squeeze, man, so far this expansion. I love the design, love the theme, and the idea. I mean, listen, hell, I love their hero talent trees too. It's just not as good as Destruction and Single Target. It's not as good as Affliction and AoE, and it's a bit too complicated for a lot of players' liking, sadly making it one of the losers so far this expansion. And a very big surprise with our next loser actually is the Hunter class overall. Listen, I know this sounds insane, but let me tell you why I think they're one of the bigger losers. The only spec that's performing exceptionally well in one specific aspect is actually Beast Mastery in a raiding environment due to their consistent mobility as well as straightforward rotation, so they can deal damage on the move to make sure they don't die to mechanics. Other than that, this class doesn't specifically shine as bright as some of the other classes do when it comes to dealing raw damage. I like to think of Hunter similar to Warrior with how much utility they bring and, their primary goal being mainly about being high, consistent DPS. And at the current moment in time, there are a lot of specs out there that just simply do it better. In Mythic Plus, there isn't a Hunter spec that glaringly shines and I'm itching to have in my group, and it's pretty much the same thing for raiding. Don't get me wrong, I think Hunter stock is definitely going to rise in about a month from now with 11.0.5. They got a lot of updates coming, a big rework to their Dark Ranger hero talent tree. I just think at this very current moment in time, they aren't performing as well as I'd hope, making them one of the bigger losers. And speaking of another class that continues to fall short of my expectations, we got to talk about the Feral Druid, man. There are points in time when Feral Druid pops all of their cooldowns and they deal insane damage in terms of AoE. But then after the cooldowns are over, it dissipates and they fall very, very far from grace. They're energy starved, they're stuck in a slower rotation, begging for combo points and energy to perform any sort of ferocious bite or finisher. Sadly, Feral Druid also has a very low priority in terms of single target when they're trying to do some AoE. And even then, their AoE just gets straight up shit on by other classes like Assassination Rogue, Frost Death Knight, Enhancement, Elemental Shaman, Fury Warrior. It just isn't even close, man. Not only that, Guardian Druid is performing well right now, and to my surprise, even Balanced Druid has even picked up the pace with having some more gear and acquiring their tier set bonuses and stuff. So sadly, this shoves Feral Druid to the least desired Druid spec, I think, out of all of them. I really hope the developers keep looking at Feral Druid because I think this class needs a lot of work across the board, including to their hero talent tree design. And speaking of Druid, we got to move on to the healers now, and of course, talking about Restoration. Another big disappointment we saw through the beta was the lack of performance for Resto Druid compared to the other healers like Preservation Evoker, Resto Shaman, and Holy Paladin. And sadly, even though we've got our tier set bonuses and a bunch of gear, it seems to have stayed the same way. They did recently get a rework to this spec, focusing more on like Grove Guardians as a primary gameplay feature, but the healing these Guardians do isn't really interactive and controllable. I mean, I love their raid-wide cooldowns like Tranquility, Rebirth. I love Innervate. They have a personal cooldown that's really nice with Incarnation that's strong as hell. The spec just requires so much more skill compared to the other classes due to it being, a ramp-up healing that if you don't time it perfectly, all of your heals are just going to get sniped by another class performing way better like Preservation Evoker. I love the idea of Restoration Druid, and I do think their stock will rise once again next patch with all the new updates coming. I just think that this current moment in time, this class is in desperate need of help for both Mythic Plus and raiding because they are doing horrible right now compared to the other better healers. And moving on to our last spec with our biggest loser on the list, we do have Protection Paladin. Sadly, we got to talk about this spec. The reworks to tanks did not do well for this class at all, and it's really sad because they've definitely seen better days. I love the amount of utility this class can bring with all of its bubbles. You know, you got Blessing of Sacrifice, Freedom, Lay on Hands, great off heals, and so much more. But to be honest, for a tank, this class's damage mitigation is just very suspect compared to some of the other tanks in the game. Classes like Protection Warrior and Guardian Druid have a very smooth damage intake compared to this class that every time I'm grouped with one, I'm actually scared they're just going to get one-shotted out of nowhere if they don't have their defensives active. Once again, this is another class that looks like it's getting some nice updates heading into 11.0.5. They got some major armor percentage increases with some passives coming. I'm just hoping they continue to update it a bit. Word of Glory healing is at an all-time low. Sentinel and IF tier saw duration nerfs, and it just feels very difficult to have a high uptime on some of your major defensives, and for a tank, that makes it one of the biggest losers, in my opinion, in the game. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're a, quote, winner or loser, every class in the game is absolutely playable. We just simply think for the average player, it might be a bit more difficult to pick up some of these specs and excel with them compared to the other classes simply because of tuning, design, difficulty, gear dependency, all that sort of stuff. Remember, this is based off rating and Mythic Plus combined, and this all could change with simply one major patch that could come any day now, so try not to come from my head too hard in the comment section below. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. It's an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. Until the very end, my name is Sky from the Comeback Kids. I will see you all in the next one. Peace. Hey, hope you enjoyed the video. Listen, if you guys enjoyed the content, we have a ton of other videos to help you get through the war within, like these two right here. And since you're already here, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button to join the Comeback Kids family today, because every subscriber matters. Thank you all so much for enjoying the video. I'll see you in the next one.